Today's notes are all about order of operations. Now, you should have gotten a copy of these notes from Mrs. Tupons, or you can choose to print them using the link she shared, or you can simply use a page in your notebook and write down the math and words as we go along taking these notes. At the time that I made this video, I was on page 23 for my notes, but feel free to adjust as necessary. Now, the first thing I recommend is if you have these notes on paper, fold them in half, or if you printed them, maybe this sheet was a separate sheet, but we're going to be using kind of both of these pages. We're going to look at what the order of operations mean, and then we're going to do some practice problems as part of our notes as well. So I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to zoom in so that we can work on this page together. We can talk about things and make some notes. You don't need to use different colors today. However, you can if you'd like to. I'm going to use some colors just so that it stands out a little bit on these notes. I'm going to get a blue and a red and a green ready just in case we need them, and they'll show up a little bit better on my video. So today we're going to talk about the order of operations. Now, the way that I learned this in school is I use this silly little acronym, this little statement that helps me remember it. And I learned to say, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." And the reason that I learned it this way is because the order of the letters for each word tells me the order that math is solved all the time in every math expression. So please, the letter P stands for parentheses. Now this can be other grouping symbols as well. The E for excuse is exponents. My dear is multiply and divide. Now those are in the same family, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then Aunt Sally is addition and subtraction always come last. Okay, so the way I like to think about this is that these are different strengths of different math. So we're going to work on some really strong concepts first. So for example, parentheses, this can also be other grouping symbols. So they might look like parentheses like this. You might have ones that look a little more square. Those are called brackets. We can even have some pretty squiggly ones, but they're all just ways to group things. Now, I like to think of these like castle walls. They're very strong, so anything inside the castle wall needs to get solved first because these grouping symbols are our clue that something inside is really, really strong and important. Next, we have exponents or powers. So if you remember, these are those little exponents we learned in our recent lessons. So I'm going to put E squared. There's an exponent. That's a power of 2. It could be any exponent, something to the 3rd power, 7th power, 20th power, but exponents come next because we've got this multiplication happening over and over. That's a really strong mathematical concept. So the next thing we're going to look at is, I call this a family. So multiplication and division are always solved left to right. So I think this is really important. That means that if multiplication comes first, left to right, and then we've got some division happening after that, we're going to multiply and then we're going to divide if that's happening left to right. Or if the division comes first, we might divide, and then as we're moving left to right, we're going to multiply a little bit later. So we always do this whole family from left to right. So I'm going to write the word family off to the side. So any multiplication and division would come after the exponents. Last but not least, we always solve the last family left to right. So I'm going to write family down here again. And that means addition and subtraction is going to be our final step. The way I remember this is multiplication and division are a lot stronger of bonds when we're multiplying things and we're putting them together, or we're dividing something into groups. That's some pretty complex math. So that's a stronger mathematical family than addition and subtraction, which are pretty simple. So if addition comes first and then subtraction, we might add first and then subtract. If the subtraction came first when we're moving left to right, we might subtract and add. So it can happen in either order, but we always solve the family left to right. So those are our rules for the order of operations. These are true at all times in all math. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply this and practice how to use this in real life. So if you're writing these notes, you might want to pause and make sure you have all this information down before we start to do some example problems. Now, since I have this page, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to zoom in a little bit as well. So it reminds us at the top, it says order of operations. When you have different operations in a math problem, you need to solve them in a specific order. So we always have parentheses, and then exponents. So I'm going to take a color and just underline this. So parentheses, there's the please. Exponents is excuse, my dear. So we have multiplication and division, but don't forget we're doing them left to right. Then we can add and subtract from left to right. So what I like to do is anytime I get a problem like this, before I even dive into solving them, I jot at the top of my paper or off to the side my steps. And instead of writing all of these long words, I do a shortcut. So I do, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'm going to show you off to the side what it looks like. So I start with the letter P for parentheses. Then below it, I do E for exponent. Next, I do M and D. But what you'll notice is I circle them because multiplication and division are a family. And I also put this little arrow to show that I always solve the family left to right. And last, I have Aunt Sally, addition and subtraction. I circle those, and I put a little arrow to remember I solve them left to right. So this is what my paper looks like, and it gives me the order of operations. It reminds me of the families, and it reminds me that families get solved from left to right. So let's try to apply this to some problems. Now, I'm going to show every step. Some students are able to do some of this math in their head, but it's really important to write it down because number one, I'm asking you to, and number two, it helps us find any mistakes or errors. If we don't write down the steps, it's really hard to see when things go wrong. So what we're going to do is let's solve a couple of these together. So number one has parentheses 26 plus 2, and then outside the parentheses we have divide by 7. So generally addition doesn't come until the end. However, anything inside the parentheses would come first. So I like to underline that because parentheses needs to get solved at the beginning. So I'm actually going to do 26 plus 2 to start because it's in the parentheses. So 26 plus 2 is 28. I'm going to jot that below. And now I'm going to bring down everything I haven't used yet. So I haven't divided and I haven't used this 7. Now what I notice is I've only got one step left. So I have to do the 28 divided by 7. There was no exponents. We're on to multiplication and division family. I see some division. 28 divided by 7 is 4. I got down to a final answer and I like to circle it. It makes kind of this upside down triangle shape because every time I solve a step, my expression gets shorter and shorter and shorter until I arrive at an answer. So my final answer would be 4. Let's try this for number 2. So we notice my order of operations tells me anything in parentheses comes first. So I'm going to underline this 8 times 9 over here. Now 8 times 9 is 72. I don't need the parentheses anymore because there's nothing else happening inside. It's just a number, so it's like those castle walls can fall down. Now I'm going to bring down everything I haven't used yet. I still have subtraction, and I still start with 9 to the second power, or 9 squared. Okay, parentheses are done. Next we have exponents. So we have 9 squared. Don't forget, this means 9 times 9. Don't forget, you can always write that and show the expanded form if you want. 9 times 9 is 81. I need to bring down my subtraction and my 72. I'm on to my last step, 81 minus 72. I can't do that mental math necessarily, so I might jot it off to the side. 81 minus 72. I've got some regrouping, and I got an answer of 9. Okay. Let's try the order of operations for a few more of these. So I'm always going to be doing, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS, or however you want to say it. So parentheses comes first. So it looks like 30 divided by 5 comes first. 30 divided by 5 is 6. The walls fall down for my parentheses because I'm done with all the math inside. I bring down everything I haven't used. I have a plus 7 on this side and a plus 7 on this side. Exponents would be next, but there are none. Multiplication and division family would be next, but there is none. So addition and subtraction family is last, and it's left to right. So I like to underline it and show that it's happening left to right. So 7 plus 6 is 13. I still have some more to do. 13 plus 7 equals 20. Let's try the next one. So hopefully this is starting to feel comfortable, and we're doing the correct order of operations every single time. So first is parentheses, but I don't see any. Next, I have exponents, which is here, 4 squared. Remember, this means 4 times 4, so you can write that out if you need to. That answer is 16. I'm going to bring everything else down. We have a plus 5 times 1 minus, and we started with a 22. So next, I am done with parentheses, I'm done with exponents. Now we have multiplication and division family. Well, I only see one example right in the middle. 1 times 5 is 5. Now I'm going to bring down the pieces I haven't used yet. So we have a 22 minus and a plus 16. And last, we're on to addition and subtraction family, and I'm solving it left to right. So even though it's subtraction first, it's all in the same family. So I'm just going to solve from left to right, just like I read. 22 minus 5 is 17. Don't forget, I've still got to do 17 plus 16. If you don't know how to solve it in a row, you can always write it up and down like I do. And I got an answer of 33. Okay. Next, we're going to solve the last 2 problems, and we're going to leave number 7 for another time. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So if you remember, I always like to write PEMDAS. I also circle the families and put little arrows left to right. Okay, so parentheses comes first. 18 divided by 9 is 2. Walls fall down, so I'm going to bring everything else down. We have a plus, we had a 5 squared, and 75. Parentheses are done. Exponents, 5 squared. Remember, that's 5 times 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. I'm going to bring down everything else. So we have 75 minus 25 plus 2 still. Now, we don't have any other multiplication and division families, but we do have addition and subtraction, and remember, it's left to right. 75 minus 25 is 50. 50 plus 2 equals 52. Okay. And last but not least, we're going to do this one. Now, this one's a little bit tricky. So even though it says parentheses, I'm going to underline everything in parentheses, but I still have another choice to make. Should I add first or should I do the exponent? Well, I'm going to go over here to my order of operations and figure out which one comes very first. So which one comes first? So if I notice I have addition, addition's down here in the addition and subtraction family, and I have exponents, which is all the way up here. So I'm going to start for sure with my exponent because exponents always come before addition. So 2 squared, that's 2 times 2, which is 4. I'm going to bring everything else down. I'm going to keep my parentheses because I still have some things happening in it. Divide, we have a 36, we have a plus, and we have a 15. Okay, I'm going to underline the parentheses again because I still have some work to do before those walls come down. 4 plus 2 is 6. Walls fall down. I'm going to bring everything else down and copy it. Okay, I've got an addition and division. Well, the multiplication and division family comes next. So 36 divided by 6 is 6. I'm going to bring down my plus and my 15, and I'm on to my last step. 15 plus 6 is 21. So I'm going to leave this here in case you need to pause and copy anything down. We've done a lot of math today, but hopefully this video was really helpful. Feel free to go back, pause, rewind, whatever you need to do. And then when you're totally ready, you can fold your notes in half if you have them, and you can glue them right into your notebook. If you remember, mine were on page 23, but yours can be on whatever page you are on in your notebook. Thanks for watching.